Welcome, Bronco Nation, to my game preview for Boise State versus Nevada. Boise State 6-3 after dropping a tough game versus BYU last week, and Nevada is crawling into this matchup at 2-7. It has been a rough season for the Wolfpack after losing Mike Norvell and then basically their entire, coaching staff and players transferring out, including a bunch of recruits leaving and following Norvell to Colorado State and some going other places. Needless to say, it has been a rough go of it for the Wolfpack here, but a rivalry game, so anything could happen here. Boise State, obviously a tough rivalry game last week against a BYU team that maybe wasn't expected to be as good as they ended up being, coming in with 4 losses in a row, coming up and playing much better against Boise State. Well, this is a rivalry game. Nevada, this is a rivalry team. Both of these teams always going to be able to put on, hopefully, their best show. There have been some blowouts here by Boise State versus Nevada in the past, and hopefully this can be another one of those, but nothing is set in stone here. This is a rivalry game for sure, and it's at Reno. It's at Nevada, a toxic place to go and play. I'm going to say that for sure. Definitely some of the most toxic fans you will ever meet. If I would honestly, and this is not me joking around, I would not encourage you to bring your children to this game. Some very toxic fans in Reno, Nevada, and especially now with the negativity of the season that they're seeing. They're already knocked out of a bowl game, so really fans with nothing to lose. But it can be a tough place to go up there and play in Nevada. Boise State in the last 10 plus years, going all the way back to 2006 actually, so definitely 10 plus years, Boise State hasn't beaten Nevada by more than 10 points at Nevada. So it could be a tough place to play. Boise State playing November 12th, 8:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. 84.5% chance of winning and favored by 20.5 points. So we'll see if Boise State can return to the 2006 days, I guess is what you could call this, with a chance to maybe get a big win here at Nevada. But this is, again, a tough game, a rivalry game, despite what Nevada's record is overall. Last stop in the rivalry revenge tour, remember, San Diego State, Air Force, and Nevada, 3 rivals beating Boise State last year. Boise State able to get back at their rivals this year, as again part of that revenge tour, and this is the last stop in that revenge tour for Boise State, already beating San Diego State, already beating Air Force, already beat Fresno State as one of their rivalry games, but a game they also won last year. This is the last chance in their conference rivalry tour and also revenge tour from 2021 to get that win versus Nevada. So series history between these two teams. Boise State and Nevada have played a ton of times. They're honestly, when you look at teams that Boise State has played, even compared to the Idaho series is probably the only one, and we don't play them anymore, the only one that actually really compares a number of frequent and consistent meetings between these two teams, between teams that Boise State has played. So Boise State 30-14, so they've won this series 30 times. Nevada getting some wins in there also at 14, but it's been a very consistent series that Boise State has played going all the way back to 1971. Boise State playing and winning the first ever game in the series 17-10. Nevada getting their first win a couple of years later in 1973 at 23-21, another close game there. And then Nevada actually had Boise's number a couple of times in this series for a little stretch there, including Boise State's first 3 years in the FBS from 96 to 98. But Boise State would then win the next 10 games. However, in 2010, the unthinkable happened. Boise State rolling in with a top 5 ranking, losing to Nevada in 2010, really has left a different look on this rivalry matchup, really made it the bitter rivalry that it is today because of that 2010 game. Boise State winning from then on, 2011 to 2018, and then Nevada getting a win in 2021 last year on the Blues. So Boise State, revenge tour, chance to return the favor and get that win here for Boise State versus Nevada. Key players in this one. We go a little bit off track from my normal routine. I've been talking a lot about some of those big guys, Halani, Taylor Green, and we'll talk about those guys later on. But I'm going to start off here by Ezekiel Noah. He's a linebacker here for Boise State who's had a great second season, or not second, he's been playing with Boise State for a little longer than that, but he's come back and had a great year here for Boise State. Last year, he was pretty reliable, but I wouldn't say that he was one of those top, dominant, relentless tacklers for Boise State. He has really risen to that this season. He has had a great year. Maybe having his brother on the team helps motivate him. Regardless, he has had a great year this season, 47 tackles, 4.5 sacks, tied for first on the team in overall sacks. So 4.5 sacks, tied for first. He also has an interception. We're going to talk about some keys to the game here later. One of those is going to be about applying pressure. The QB is a little bit of a sneak peek, but part of that is getting some of those secondary players, some of those guys that aren't on the line, because Boise State's line is having issues actually getting through and applying pressure to the quarterback. Having some of those guys being able to come downhill and make some tackles, being able to come and apply some pressure on the quarterback, especially with the loss of Tarles, who was a big part of that, and Banya transferring out, who had a hard nose for getting to the quarterback. Someone else has got to step up. Of course, Ezekiel Washington has been great, but I think that Noah is a guy that you can look to with some design packages, being able to get to the quarterback more consistently. He is someone who could definitely help increase some pressure here for Boise State. Second on here is going to be Genty. 417 yards, 5 touchdowns on the season, but he's had a little bit of a drop-off of late, really after the Air Force game, where, of course, he left with that head injury. And the question has to be asked, is he 100%? Because before that game, in the 3 previous games, he had 12 carries, 19 carries, and 15 carries. And after that, versus Colorado State and versus BYU, he's had 9 carries and 5 carries. Very, very significant drop-off. So is he on a snap count? Has he not 100% recovered? He's just not playing up to his level? Or is the coaching staff making a calculated decision to play him less? If it's the third one, which I don't think it is, if it's the third one, that needs to stop. This is a player who needs to be on the field on a consistent basis and getting those reps. He is the future of this program. Halani, an incredible back. Genty, equally incredible back. Doug Martin 2.0, like I've said. Both of these guys can contribute massively on the field. When you have both of them performing routinely, consistently on the field, it is impossible to stop. So if the third option, which I don't think it is the reason, then Genty needs to be back on the field more. If it's the other two, well, that's a little bit of a concern. This is kind of a game where Genty getting a large load of carries help ease some fans' minds here and help put Boise State's running game back on track. So hoping he's able to have a big game, either because he's able to fully recover and come back 100%, or because the coaching staff gives him the attention that he deserves. Whatever the reason is, hoping he's able to have a bigger focus. Like I said, 417 yards, 5 touchdowns on the season, but a much reduced role the last couple of games, only 37 yards versus Colorado State, and only 17 yards on 5 carries versus BYU. The last guy, and he was a key player last week as well, is going to be JL Skinner. Caught a little bit of flack. I didn't actually see the specific tweets that were calling JL Skinner out, but I did see JL Skinner and his mom's reaction to those. I don't think they were deserved. Again, I didn't see what they said, but I'm just going to say they probably weren't deserved because JL Skinner, the loss last week is not on Skinner. He did miss a couple of tackles, but by the time they got to him in the secondary, there'd been some misplays before that, and the whole team was missing tackles. So it's not on Skinner for missing tackles, and he had an interception. I thought overall he played pretty well. But what we haven't really seen this season is the just pure naked aggression that we saw out of Skinner last year. I think that's probably a little deliberate. He had a lot of issues with getting those targeting calls last year, and I think probably there was some coaching over the season to maybe teach him some different techniques to lighten up and maybe not come in so hard where he's putting himself at risk and at risk of getting in trouble with the refs. However, I think that's taken away a little bit of his edge, which made him or makes him such an incredible player. 49 tackles this season, 2 interceptions, but I think this is a chance versus Nevada. Hey, if there's a chance to expel some hate, it's versus this team. I think there's a chance here versus Nevada for him to reapply the dominance that we saw last year, which really made him that all top level player for Boise State. So this is a big game, I think, for these 3 players to kind of, Genty and JL Skinner to reestablish themselves, and for Ezekiel Noah to continue to establish himself, and maybe in a new way, maybe a new focus in increasing pressure getting to the quarterback here. For Nevada, it's going to be 3 guys that I'm going to look at, all on offense. Again, it's been a rough go across the board here for Nevada, but a pretty consistent light here for them has been Toa Tua, 571 yards, 10 touchdowns, 3.7 yards average. He's not a breakaway back. He's not, going to destroy you on the ground, but he's very, very consistent. He's a guy that I've been high on for Nevada for a while, watched him play in a lot of games here for the Wolfpack, but he's a very, very consistent back. pretty big. I think he's 218 pounds, somewhere in that number, right around 5'10". I didn't write down the number, so I'm having to remember off my memory what I saw on him. But he's a pretty good size back, and he's just very, very consistent. 3.7 yard average per carry. So he's not destroying you or blowing you away, but he is a guy he eats into you as the game goes on. He's going to be tough to stop. Definitely going to be a big focus here for Nevada, especially because they've got a little bit of some quarterback issues. Their main starter has been benched. They're going with Shane Illingworth, 638 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the year versus San Jose State. He actually helped Nevada stay in the game there. They were very, very close to beating San Jose State. 18 out of 29, 223 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But again, he's a little bit raw, a little bit fresh here for Nevada. And again, I think they're going to be relying on that ground game. But if they do go to the air, one of his biggest targets is going to be the wide receiver, B.J. Castell. 397 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. It's along of 53 yards receiving on the year. So this is a guy who he demands the ball. Boise State struggling to stop the deep ball. Remember that versus BYU and every other game this season. Struggling to stop the deep ball. If Castell can get it, if Illingsworth can get it out there to Castell, this is a connection that might hurt Boise State. I think we might see some big plays out of these two versus on Saturday as well. All right, keys to the game here. So number one key for Boise State is get Green's legs back in the game. 102 yards versus Oregon State, 105 yards versus San Diego State. And then after that, he's had 11 carries for 22 yards, 5 carries for 16 yards, 3 carries for 13 yards. And last week versus BYU, a team that has struggled to stop the run game all season, not only did Boise State have a very low rushing performance, Taylen Green only had 5 carries for 14 yards. Whenever he did pull the ball, he looked pretty effective. That 14 yards includes sack yards. So when he did pull the ball, he looked pretty effective, but Boise State wasn't doing that. Now, the coaching staff, when pressured by the media, are claiming that other teams have adapted and they're keeping him in. They're penning him in, and he's not able to get to the outside. I don't think that's the case. I do believe that other teams are focusing on Taylen Green and penning and hemming him in and reducing his ability to run. I'm going to say I do believe that. I don't think that's the reason, though, that he has basically dropped off the map in the running game. I think it's because they're not calling his number. I think they're saying, well, we can beat him with Taylen Green's arm and we can beat him with our traditional running game. And versus BYU, that was not the case. It was almost not the case versus Air Force, so there were a lot of injuries in the running game, so that reduced the effort there. Colorado State was a case where, they were bad, and Colorado State was just a bad team, so Boise State had some opportunities to work on some different elements. But Taylen Green is his legs. He has an arm. He's developing that. He has definitely come a large way, but he is not a premier passing quarterback yet. Very fresh, very raw, got a lot to develop. What makes Taylen Green special, what sets him apart, what makes him such an impressive and incredible and exciting athlete here for Boise State, and what really amps up this offense is his legs. Boise State has got to find a way to get his raw athleticism on the field, and I'm not talking about his arm, because that is not where his strong point is. His raw athleticism is his legs. Plenty of other teams have running, mobile, exciting athletic quarterbacks, and they're able to find ways, despite every team knowing, hey, this is a runner, we're going to have to stop him, find ways to get them back in the game, whether that's through draw plays, whether that's through option plays like we saw early in the season where he pulls it out of the running back and he goes around the outside, or through it's to more of an RPO type of style where he could throw the ball if he wants to. I think that has been something we've seen. We have seen that, but I think maybe we see him pull the ball a little bit more, and that might suck the defense up the field and give him some more passing opportunities. Or if it's just straight up scramble, finding ways to get upfield, get him in the running game, get him involved. Boys, I say from Taylen Green, you need to see 50-plus yards rushing every game to say that you are actually efficiently using his legs in the ground game, in the offense overall. So whatever it is, Boise State's got to find a way. Dirk Cutter, incredible offensive coordinator, great offensive mind. I don't buy that defenses are just stopping Taylen Green from running. Dirk Cutter can beat them on the ground if he wants to. He can get Taylen Green involved in the running game if he wants to. I think it's a purposeful decision to try and emphasize and build Taylor Green's arm, which while that might be great, it's not what this offense, it's not what the offensive line, it's not what these wide receivers, and it's not are built for. And I don't think it's what Taylor Green right now is built for either. We need to get Green's legs back in the game. That is what sparked Boise State in their recent success, and that's what will get Boise State back on track. Second here, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but it builds into it, reestablish the run-based offense. Boise State, 316 yards rushing versus San Diego State, 316 yards again versus Fresno State, then 115 versus Air Force. Now that was a big part because Holani didn't play, and Genty was taken out early. So that was a big, okay, fine. We'll chalk that one up to injuries. 209 versus Colorado State, but there was a lot of passing in that game, over 300 yards passing that game. So that's a big emphasis on the passing game, and I'm saying that was trying new stuff out. Hey, Colorado State gives it an opportunity. They're terrible on offense, so they're not going to challenge you there, and their defense is garbage, so you have opportunities to try something out and see what works. But BYU, 104 yards versus BYU, a team that has given up so many yards. I'm going to have to go back to my game review to get the exact numbers because that's where I wrote it down. But in their 4-game losing streak, they've given up 234 yards or more in every game, including 300 yards versus my other team, Liberty, who is not a run-focused team. Boise State, only 104 yards versus BYU because they tried to come with a balanced passing attack offense. That is not the way. That is not the way forward for this Boise State team. Now, is it forward next year? Yeah, it might be. I mean, the balanced attack is what Boise State has always run and what has always been run effectively. And obviously, it's what Dirk Cutter is most familiar with. But that is not what this offense is built for. This offensive line is absolutely garbage. They have been for 4 years, and they still are. What makes them look good, what makes this offensive line competent, what makes this offensive line able to churn out 300-yard games is using your quarterback in the running game, so it spreads out the defense, and just grinding the defense down to the point where eventually they're giving up yards in the running game. The offensive line is now becoming stronger because the defense is getting worn out. So spreading them out because they don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback, and just running it down their throat over and over and over again with two fresh, incredible running backs in Holani and Genty, and that is what has spelled the lesson for success here for Boise State. Balanced attack offense is not going to work, and it hasn't, and it didn't work versus BYU, is not going to work on this team. Boise State's wide receivers, you have some great, I think, potential. I'm really excited about McAllister. I'm excited about Caples, what he's done so far this season, what he's developing into. But Boise State still doesn't have wide receivers that are able to get open consistently, especially on the deep ball. We saw that on the 4th down play, or we saw that on the last drive for Boise State where they were forced into clear passing situations. They're just not built. They haven't been all season, and they're still not built this year, this season, to be a pass-heavy team. Their wide receivers just not able to get open consistently, and the offensive line not able to provide time when pressed in a pass-heavy attack. So Boise State, they need to reestablish that run-based offense. That has been what put Boise State back on track. Getting away from that, I think, has moved them back off the tracks. This is what's going to put them back on, pushing for the rest of the season towards a successful Mountain West run towards that Mountain West championship. So use Green's legs and use the running game. Those are going to be the two biggest keys. It'll set up the short passing play. It'll set up the deep ball. The more that you're running it and forcing the defense in, you're going to open up opportunities deep. Boise State has got to find a way to reestablish the offense that fixed the offense. The balanced attack, and now I know I'm kind of going off on a longer tangent than I meant to, and I really do want to get to key 3. But the balanced attack, Tim Plow caught a lot of flack. But a big reason that he didn't perform so well wasn't just because of his play calling. A big reason was because of the type of offense that he tried to run. Dirk Cutter, obviously a higher caliber offensive coordinator, because he's just, one of the most, he is right now the most experienced offensive coordinator in the game, former NFL head coach. So he is a much better play caller, so the offense still looks better when running the balanced attack than it did under Plow. However, it's not running to its full potential like we have seen when they're doing the run-heavy offense, because for whatever reason, this offense is built around, able to find its top level of success when you are running the run-heavy attack It's what makes this offense actually look not just competent, but dominant. That's what Boise State's got to reestablish here. The third key, and I've mentioned a little bit when I talked about my key players of the game, but it's find the QB. Find the way to the QB. Coverage cannot stop the deep ball. They haven't been able to all season. And really, when you start giving them 4 or 5 seconds, when you start giving the quarterback 4 or 5 seconds in the pocket, that has been breaking down pretty much all season as well. I mean, the scramble plays, the kind of the backyard football plays, and when they get out of their break on the route, and now they're having to come back to the ball, they're open most of the time as well. So you can do one of two things when you're having issues in the coverage. You can make the coverage better, or you can get to the quarterback faster and reduce the time that the defenders actually have to stay in coverage. I think the second option is a little bit an easier fix. I think that's what Boise State needs to focus on here. They need to just find their ways to increase the pressure, and really you could do that by one of two ways, either finding playmakers, which Boise State has on the bench for some reason, but Boise State has playmakers who can get to the quarterback. I'm looking at you, Divine Obercherry, or coaches looking down at Divine Obercherry. Get him on the field. He dominated the Colorado State line. He has dominated the defense whenever he's been on the field in his playing experience, which for some reason has been limited. This is a guy who can take over a game. He is a guy who can get to the quarterback. I'm not saying, replace Matlock, but find ways to mix him into the game because he is a raw athletic ball of fire that we need to be torching these offensive lines with. So you can either use better playmakers, or not better, but playmakers better set towards a certain form of defense, or you can adjust your play calling to use the blitz more. Whenever Boise State used the blitz versus BYU, it was very effective. Boise State using the linebackers and their DBs, like I talked about, Ezekiel Noah coming in. That is a way that you could become more effective with increasing pressure. Boise State needs to shift towards that more here in the second half of the season versus hoping that their normal rush is going to be able to get to the quarterback and this coverage is going to be able to stay on their wide receivers long enough because it's just not working right now. Get Green's legs back in the game. Key number one, reestablish running-based offense and find the quarterback. So summary here, because I'm at 22 minutes. I'd like to keep this between 25 and 30. Really summarizing here real quick. This is a very bad Nevada team. There is no getting around it. They are really, really bad. But it is still a rivalry game. This is still a Nevada team. This is still a rivalry game. Nothing can be taken for granted, especially with Boise State having to go play at Nevada. Boise State, again, hasn't won big in Nevada since 2006. It is a tougher place to play, especially with the toxicity of that fan base. So this is, you got two tough games coming up after this. Boise State really needs to get this one under their belt so they can focus on Wyoming and Utah State. Those are going to be two all-important games because Wyoming right now only has one loss in conference and Utah State only has two. If Boise State drops this game versus Nevada, I mean, that would be just terrible for multiple reasons, but it would make it very tough. I mean, they would make those two games basically must-win games, especially if one of the losses was Nevada, to Wyoming. It would make those two games pretty much must-win games for Boise State to get into the Mountain West Championship game. This is a game that they should win, but it's a game that they're going to have to put up their best performance, not only to go out and win this game, because they might need their best performance to win this game because it's a rivalry, but they'll need their best performance to get themselves completely back on track, come in with momentum. Be nice to be able to rest some starters in the second half, fourth quarter, come with momentum and energy for Wyoming, because that is going to be a very tough challenge. So this is Boise State's chance to recenter themselves. They got off track early in the season. They found their way back, and now they've shifted gradually. And it wasn't just BYU. They gradually shifted off towards an offense that isn't working, has not worked for Boise State for the last 4 years, and it might have been partially Bachmeier, but it's not just Bachmeier and it's not just Plow. This offense as a whole is not built for the bounce attack. The run-heavy scheme makes this offense look good, makes these players look good. Boise State needs to focus. They've got great playmakers in the running game. Build around your best players, which are your runners. So Boise State here got to win this game, and they need to not just win it, they need to reestablish the offense that worked so well at the beginning of the year so they can move forward and find success here the last couple of games coming into the Mountain West that all-important Mountain West Championship game. So the score prediction in this one, because it's at Nevada, because Boise State is maybe not doing as well as they were the 4 games before BYU, and they're having to reestablish themselves. I think offensively, it's also going to be very, very cold. Offensively, I think it's going to be maybe a little bit lower than it would otherwise, and I think that Nevada, again, because of the rivalry nature, because of the fans who show up around them, I think that they will be able to get some points in, especially with Toa Tua maybe being able to push someone in from close up. And Shane Illingsworth, actually not a bad quarterback here for Nevada, definitely has shown some improvements. I think that they'll be able to put up around 17 to 24 points. Boise State, though, winning this game, though not by the 20.5 overall. I'm thinking final score prediction here, 38 to 24. So that's my final score prediction, 38 to 24. Boise State gets a nice win here to finish out their rivalry series as they move forward to focusing on Wyoming, which is going to be a huge game. But you can't overlook them. You can't overlook the Wolfpack to look forward to Wyoming, because this could be a trap game if Boise State's not careful. So thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think. Make sure you like, subscribe, and as always, go Big Blue!